This is Scott Koegler. I'm here with Jeffrey Kaplan of ThinkStrategies. And Jeffrey, I think what we want to talk about here is the migration to SaaS, to cloud, how that's kind of manifesting itself particularly in the EDI world where I live most of the time.
Well, as you and I have talked about many times, we've seen this marketplace evolve in such a way that it began with Salesforce.com proving to the world that SaaS could be used in the front office, and then companies like NetSuite proving it could be used in the back office, and now a series of companies demonstrating that it could be used in inter-office or even inter-enterprise environments, and bringing back the old idea of the extranet 10 years later.
Right.
Because the enabling technologies are there, the economics are there, and most importantly, customer receptivity is there. And as a result, they're willing to, at this point, I guess, experiment to a greater extent, and in fact, even deploy these things to meet their needs. Right.
So the web has kind of normalized the remote computing. No more thinking about, is this on my desktop? Is it off there somewhere? And I think one of the bigger questions is my data secure, or is the application secure? That's been a big deal.
Absolutely. It still is, and it's the starting point for most discussions.
Right.
Where is my data? How is it being secured? Can I get my data back? Who has their hands or their eyes on my data? All those concerns still exist, but the good news is that vendors have a pretty good set of answers.
Right.
To respond to those questions, and in many cases, they have better answers than the companies themselves who have been grappling with these issues for years.
Right, because their entire venture is at risk.
That's right.
Based on, I heard somebody tell me yesterday, if they get nailed once, that's bad. If they get nailed twice, that's really bad. If they get nailed 3 times, they're out of business.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
And because their business does depend upon being able to give their customers the assurance that they're both reliable, they're secure, their data will be protected, they have to meet a higher standard than you and I, so to speak.
Right.
And what's been interesting is, and most companies don't realize this, that SaaS has been adopted to a great extent by large enterprises initially, not necessarily just small and mid-sized businesses. And those large enterprises got in at a stage where they could actually influence the level of security and the quality of service to a greater extent than we ever imagined. So if I'm thinking about using these kinds of services for my modest needs, those services have actually been tested by companies who have far greater needs than I can ever imagine. And hopefully I'm going to gain the benefit of that as I adopt those services.
And they have the finances in place to be able to put in the SLAs that put those companies under the fire.
Well, and that's where the whole idea of governance, which is the catch-all phrase for service-level agreements and all the rest, that's where that's becoming even more of a focal point today, because organizations now realize that SaaS works, they realize it's relatively reliable, they realize it's pretty secure, but now they want the documentation, so to speak, and the business processes in place to ensure that they're properly supported if a problem does occur, because stuff happens, and you're never going to have 100% uptime or 100% assurance that it's going to ultimately be secure. What you're hoping is going to be far more secure and far more reliable at a far better price than if you were to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
And also, by the way, that there are ancillary benefits that come along with it, that there's traceability, there's reporting, there are other kinds of attributes that SaaS brings that you can't get on your own. For instance, if a SaaS vendor is able to build a critical mass of customers and aggregate some of the activity data, not the customer data, but the activity data, they can begin to establish some interesting statistical data or analysis that everybody can share within that community. Again, the promise of the extranet of data sharing across the community is becoming a reality today. Those are ancillary benefits that have to be built into the value proposition that customers consider as they're looking at SaaS.
Right, and they would be built into the applications, and they're also something that single installations really could never achieve.
That's exactly right. And the vendors who support it could never achieve, because each one of those installations have been customized to such an extent that the vendor couldn't even recognize their own apps by the time they're done.
Right, exactly.
And they aren't actually seeing how they're being used because there's a void between them and the customer.
Right, and then they come to do an update, and falls apart.
So what's also interesting in all of this is that there's a third party entering the mix, which is that there's a new generation of VARs getting involved who bring industry-specific expertise. They'll take the horizontal app from a source, and they'll be able to apply it to a specific industry. And they're going to become an interesting player in all of this as well. So that's the next wave, I think, in terms of the evolution of SaaS, and will help to exponentially grow the size of the SaaS marketplace.
Okay, right. So now you have VARs installing and implementing SaaS rather than implementing premises-based applications, and doing the training and those kind of things.
And they're seeing that they get the benefit as well, because now they have the direct connect to the customer and can witness how the customer is using that app and have an opportunity to create greater stickiness, of course, in that kind of business environment.
Right. Cool. Good stuff. Anything else you want to add?
That will do it for now. It's a pleasure to see you as always.
Good to see you, Jeffrey.
Thanks for your time.
Take care.